Good afternoon. My name is Victoria Moores. I'm European Bureau Chief for Air Transport World magazine, and with me today is Montserrat Barriga, who is the Director General for the European Regions Airline Association. Good afternoon, Montserrat.
Good afternoon, Victoria.
Montserrat, obviously the topic of the day is COVID and the impact on the industry as a whole. What I'm wondering is, you're specifically representing Europe's regional airlines, and I'm wondering what the impact has been specifically on the regional sector of this crisis.
Well, I haven't been that long with the association. I've only been a few years. This is my third year, but the association has been in business since 40 years ago. This year is our 40th anniversary, and I can tell you from discussions with members, we have never seen anything like this before. It's completely unprecedented. I mean, I know this is what everyone is saying these days. What else can you say? But it's true. It's true. I think we've only we're only seeing maybe the top of the iceberg, and we have seen already some bankruptcies and some companies, especially airlines, going into administration. Unfortunately, the regional airlines have traditionally been more, vulnerable to bankruptcies, and we might see some more of those. I was looking at some of the statistics from our members. For example, the Eurocontrol flights in terms of routes, city pairs, for September this year versus September last year, and there's already a reduction approximately 30% in routes. So this is actual routes that are not being connected. So we're going to see an impact in connectivity as well. A lot of smaller airports that are, they have to close down because there's literally no traffic. Yes, I mean, it's very worrying. Yeah.
You talked there about the impact on your members and their ability to literally survive in the market. We've seen quite a few examples of that. I mean, even going into the crisis, there was the failure of Flybe. Seen other airlines that have had financial difficulties, CityJet and Examinership, similar situations across Europe. What are you hearing from your members about the actual situations that they're in, and do you think we will see more failures?
Yes, I mean, in the past few years, we have seen a few airline bankruptcies. Unfortunately, some of the ERA members have disappeared. You mentioned Flybe. We also lost Adria, a long-standing airline in Slovenia, Astra in Greece, BMI, Regional, Skywork, and Darwin. I mean, unfortunately, many. But this was due to strong competition and the fact that because of the business model of a regional airline, obviously with a lack of economies of scale, they are more impacted by costs such as, for example, EU ETS or passenger compensation. Obviously, when you look at on a per seat or per passenger KPIs, they're obviously more impacted because of those lack of economies of scale, as I said. But in these days, it's not just, I mean, it's competition. But it's basically the lack of passengers, lack of business. We have heard yesterday that there's been an announcement about the extension of the temporary framework for state aid. That's absolutely needed. We need cash into the system. We need state aid support to our airlines, smaller, medium-sized, larger airlines. Some of the European champions or larger airlines in Europe have already got hold of some government support, but not all the airlines, not all the players in the aviation ecosystem. And we hope that there will be hopefully more airlines accessing this kind of government support through, backup loan guarantees, and just some financial oxygen to go through the next few months. But this has been unevenly spread, so we don't really know how much competition is going to be distorted in the long run. So it's something that we will need to watch very carefully.
I like that phrase, financial oxygen. That really seems very, very relevant right now. And with that, changing landscape, that changing environment, do you think we're going to see significant changes to the regional airline model at all coming out of this?
I think we do. We will see some changes, definitely. I mean, in the last few months, we've seen, you know, more consolidation. I think they will still be needed, definitely. Secondary to secondary airport connectivity will be needed. Many of our airlines, especially those connecting remote regions, archipelagos, islands, they have kept a minimum level of activity, a decent level of activity. But I think there will need to be, some of them will need to go back to their operations, because otherwise we will see more airlines disappearing.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that you could see any targeted support specifically for the regional sector? Because a lot of the way that you go to bodies like the European institutions is saying that your members connect the European regions, which is a fundamental tenet of mobility within Europe. Do you see any specific support for regional airlines coming from that?
I think there are instruments already, like the PSO obligations, the public service obligations, for example. I will see more of those going forward, because there will be more regions that will stop being connected, and those citizens are European citizens that obviously, you know, have the right to be connected to their friends, relatives, or, you know, for medical reasons, for business purposes, etc. So I think there will be other instruments such as those PSO obligations that traditionally it takes time and effort to develop a PSO. In the last few months, we've seen more emergency PSOs being approved, and I think we will see more and more of that.
Mm-hmm. So potential, a bit of financial oxygen that might come from that, but that it is difficult for the industry to breathe at the moment. So
there is something else. As an industry, we're working together with other airline associations, with A4E, with ACI for the Airports Council, for the air navigation service providers, and the unions and the NGOs, etc. And we are we're calling for, also the manufacturers, we're calling for a specific aviation relief program. So so that aviation, being a key sector, basic sector that is actually at the basis of any economic recovery, will need to be specifically targeted to get financial support. That can come from the recovery funds, general recovery funds, or it can be a specific program. But we think it needs clearly a different focus from the rest of the industries. Is clearly supporting millions of jobs and you know, the GDP in Europe. So it does need to have a special focus.
Mm-hmm. Is there a specific name for that program or that project?
No, it's we're calling it Specific Aviation Relief Program for now. Then different possibilities have been discussed.
Okay. And any idea when there might be an update on that or further news come through?
The final report for the aviation recovery roundtable is going to be presented in November, first week in November. And I think from then, as the project will then, you know, break down into specific milestones and actions. So hopefully very, very soon.
And it's great to see the industry coming together in that way to create a joined up message to regulators.
Absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that has brought us together is this crisis, and I would say also sustainability. You know, those efforts that we are all doing together to ensure that we are proactive rather than reactive. Like, we come up with a plan that we say, guys, we can do it, but we need cooperations from the institutions and the industry working together. Yes. So yeah, there's always a, you know, bright side of things, right?
Absolutely. So cooperation is the way forward. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Montserrat. I really appreciate your contribution to our programme.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Victoria Moores reporting for Air Transport World.